Thanks. So I have the great honor of presenting our guest speaker. Just to give you a little bit of his background, Hans Jürg Schär is a certified chartered accountant from Switzerland by professional, by trade. From 1972 to 89, he held various financial positions with multinational companies across Switzerland, USA, Australia, and the UK. From 1989 till 1994, he was the CEO of the watch brand Swatch and a member of the management board of the parent company, the Swatch Group. From 1994 to 1999, he was one of the three founders and managing directors of the new car brand Smart, which, by the way, stands for Swatch Mercedes Art, for those that didn't know that. So starting in 2000 until I think recently, he was engaged in various international companies in Switzerland as chairman and or member of the board of directors, in addition of being CEO of an industrial company in the precious metal industry from 2000 to 2004. Since 2011, he's a guest lecturer at the Namibia University of Science and Technology in Windhoek. I'll give you Hans Jürg Schär.
Okay, Brandon, thank you. Good morning, everybody in South Africa. And looking at the dresses, it must be cold. Here it's the opposite. We have 30 degrees and sunny. And you see how different the temperature is, but the subject we will talk about is basically the same whether you live in Europe or whether you live in South Africa at this time. And the subject basically will cover some issues or some actions which I propose you can take to, let's say, to reduce the burden and the risk of the present economic situation due to the coronavirus. I think all of us, being in business, but also from a personal point of view, we are in difficult situations. And the difficult situation is not this time because we did a lousy job from a business point of view. I think it's circumstances which were not controllable by us or our countries we are living in. So there is a high level of uncertainty. Nobody knows what's coming in the next 3 months or what's coming in 12 months. I think everybody's hoping that a vaccination will obviously help to change the situation dramatically, but nobody so far except the Russians have been able to announce a successful outcome of all these different trials at these different companies. So forecasting is very difficult at this time. The second, what does this cause to us or to the environment, to the business? Normally, in this type of uncertainty, businesses are not investing, okay? Everybody's keeping cash in his pocket. There are some people who obviously are benefiting from this situation, and they do invest, but these are very few. To give you an example, in Switzerland, the repair business for kitchens or for flats or the cleaning business, they are really having a substantial increase because people, A, have time to fix it themselves or they get it fixed. So these type of businesses, there are some beneficiaries, so to speak, of this very unfortunate situation. The second thing which we need to consider is that all of us, being a consumer, we are holding back on buying anything which we do not need for the daily life. So let's say buying hard goods is not really on top as a priority of our list. I mean, if you look at how car sales have been dropping across the world, except in China, it starts to coming back, is basically a good example that most of us have a car, and if your car breaks, then obviously you need to do something, but that is not the very regular situation. So consumers are keeping the money to themselves. And the last one is that the government, normally also a big investor in the marketplace in terms of building roads, building infrastructure, running businesses, what have you, they obviously are in the same situation as the consumer is. They have to spend the money on fighting the present health situation and the consequences, so to speak, of the economic situation due to this pandemic, this virus. And on top of it, they are not investing into the future. They need to support the population in their daily needs, okay? So everything I tried to explain to you on the situation shows very clearly that everybody is trying to survive and try to keep the money he has available or he's generating close to him. So the first item I want to talk to you is slogan, cash is king, okay? So I'm on the board of directors of a company which is headquartered in Cyprus, but has the major activity manufacturing plant in Ukraine, but we ship goods across the world. And the first thing we did, we said, it's not an issue right now to make a lot of profit. It's an issue to have cash available and to make sure that we build up over a very short period of time enough cash that we can survive an extreme situation for at least 6 months. And that buildup of cash is not a one-time issue. That's something which you can develop over very different months, okay? And to a level which you feel is a safety net for you, okay? So you as an organization, you know how much expenses you're having, how much cash you need to support your business. And so you would define, let's say, a credit line, so to speak, an internal credit line, an amount of money you like to put on the side in case the situation even gets worse. And so far, it's always management and human beings. Normally, you underestimate the crisis. You normally never think how bad it could become. You're always somehow optimistic. So putting cash aside is very important. So how could we do that? Okay. Now, you obviously have payables to make on a regular basis. And I think the first thing you would normally try to do is to extend payment terms on your accounts payable. So you take, instead of paying in 30 days or in 60 days, you say I take another 30 days before I make payment. However, what is important to see is that it's not a question of not paying at all. I think the issue is that you continue to pay your partners, your suppliers regularly, but not on the time you agreed upon, okay? The next step, which could be an important one, depending on how you're being financed, is if you have a loan from a bank or a third party, you normally have installments to make, which include principal and interest, or you have only principals to pay and interest later, or you pay interest and principals later. So what is important is that in order to put cash on the side, that you pay regularly your interest, that you don't necessarily pay the principal, because the banks, the way they are structured in their risk behavior is, as long as you as a company or as an individual pay the interest, you're safe. If you don't pay principal, they will write you some nasty letters, but they normally continue working with you. But when you start not paying interest, then it's getting really difficult for you, okay? So I think it's important to differentiate between, on a loan, paying interest on the loan and paying principals. Another area which obviously is something important to reduce cost. And I always say to reduce cost, it's not an issue which relates to your subordinates. To give you an example, at the company I'm on the board, we agreed that we would reduce our board fees by 30% for an indefinite period until this difficult period is over. The top management agreed that they will take a 20% salary cut also for the same period, which is basically not yet over. And the employees, we basically differentiated obviously on how much it is, because the people who have a low salary, they are more inclined, you should treat them differently than obviously the people with a high salary. But I think the message is very clearly, a salary cut has to go across your organization in total, without any exceptions. Okay. Another area to reduce cost is, if you have enough work, then you will not let people go on vacation. They should basically work to generate turnover and have cash. Obviously, if it's the opposite, like if you're in the airline business right now, you would send people on vacation to use up their remaining vacation. So I think it's a two-way street, dependent on how the situation is of your particular business. Another area which is very important is that you would reduce working time without compensation. To give you an example, instead of working 5 days a week, you would only work 4 days a week or 3 days a week, dependent on how do you say, the level of your activity. You might even say with no compensation, if that is legally available. You know, every country obviously has different laws concerning working time reduction or short work week, how it's being called. Let's say in Switzerland, there is a scheme that you can apply, the company can apply with the government for 1 year now, that you pay 80% of the people's salary and 20% the company will have to pay if they like, or if they can't do it because they are short on cash, then the employee will only get 80%, and the government will reimburse the 80% of the amount of money of the salary. Okay. Another area to save cash, obviously, is if you reduce headcount. In my opinion, I would obviously do the first three: reduce salaries, delete vacation, reduce working time. I would do that before I decide to reduce headcount. Okay. I think headcount is always emotionally something difficult, but it's very clear. To give you an example, the company I was referring to, I'm on the board, we did not fire anybody since March. We did not replace, obviously, people who left us, so we had a hiring freeze. Okay. However, now looking ahead for next year, based on the order entry over the last 3 to 4 months, we see very clearly that there is, for next year, our level of the business, we assume, will be a bit higher than what we're experiencing now, but will never be back to what we have experienced before the pandemic came in. So we have decided to reduce headcount, to take the steps to reduce headcount by 25% between August and December. So we are ready for next year. Okay. So I think reducing headcount is something which needs to be considered very carefully, but it's something which needs to be done if the level of business is even increasing, but not back to where it was before. Okay. Next one is almost self-understood. I think you should try to reduce all expenditure, fixed assets, whatever you have, to the bare minimum. I think that's normally the easiest, but sometimes people think about that for the others, but not for themselves. I will get to that back later. Another area where obviously most of you probably have rent to pay for your offices or for your warehouse or for your manufacturing facility. So I think you should either ask for an immediate reduction on the rent, limited in time, that you say, as long as this business, this pandemic situation is around, let's agree on a reduction of rent, because normally the landlord, if you go bust, he doesn't have any rent income anymore, because it's very unlikely that somebody else will go and rent the space you're renting now. So he rather might be inclined to have a reduced rent income for a limited period of time. Okay. The other one is stop payment of lease rent by at least 30 days. I think that goes in a bit the same area. I think the message is these are fixed costs, whether it's the car rent, whether the office rent, whatever, fixture rent, whatever. So you should try, don't be afraid to go and talk to these companies or individuals and ask for a decrease, because they are normally doing exactly the same to their suppliers. Okay. And the last one, which is, I don't know, dependent on the business, is obviously that you would ask for an advance payment from your clients. So you get maybe 20%, 30% cash before you deliver your service or you send the product. So these are all items, areas which I think they are not 100% complete. You might think about other areas, but my message to you is you have to go in there and don't be afraid or concerned about somebody will fire you or somebody will cancel your contract. I think people all understand these days that the situation is the same for everybody, okay? And B, it's not because you as an organization or as an individual did a lousy job, it's just everyone in business is basically concerned and has to fight that cash is king.